Hey peeps, welcome back to my channel and to the next episode of our Server-Side Swift using Vapor CRUD series. In this episode, we are going to learn how to delete data from our database, more specifically, how to delete ideas. And so in our final result, we can see we have delete buttons, and once we click them, our ideas are gone. And even if we refresh, they won't come back, and we are clicking buttons to make them vanish. So let's dive right into the implementation. And the first thing I want to do is fix our input field by also having a placeholder telling us what to do with it. So let's refresh, and it says enter an idea here. So let's do that. Let's enter 2 ideas that we have. And what I want to do is include, or actually introduce, a new column to the right that has a link that will trigger or actually request a root called /delete/ and then the ID of the idea to then delete that idea. So let's get into it by introducing a new column for each row. So let's cut this one out and put it here. Put another TD for the another. Why is the indentation so weird? Now it's fixed. For the next column, and we want a link that is pointing to /delete and then /the ideas ID, like that. And then we want to have it say delete and close the A tag like that. Once we refresh, we see those links, and on the down the left window of the browser, you can see the links are pointing to 1 and 2. Once we click one of those links, we will get not found because we haven't implemented a handler yet. So let's do that. We go to routes.swift and introduce a new handler that would actually manage a get request at /delete/ and then some dynamic value. So that is the interesting part here, how to do that. So we're defining a get request at the root delete, and then a dynamic value that we afterwards expect to be an integer. That's why we use the integer dot parameter to then finish our closure right here. And let's return delete. And now what this part does is it will say, well, after delete, there comes another / and then another part of the URL. It could be anything. It could be number 1, or it could be also a word okay. However, as long as there is not following once another /, this particular URL /delete/ another part, which is one, and then as a dynamic part, it will match that handler, and that handler will be executed. So let's try that. We run the project and we refresh that URL, and we see delete is executed. And even if we say okay, delete is still executed. So this handler is still managing also those requests. So why do we use then integer.parameter in the first place? Because this is the reservation for that part of the URL for us to later on, which is now, get that part and try to convert it into an integer, right? And so let's define a variable called ID and then get that part out of our URL definition here that we defined or expected to be an integer, and let's try to convert it into an integer. It's as simple as just trying to get from the request parameters the next int.self. And this int.self will actually go from left to right and look up where is the int.parameter, and then whatever is at this place, right? If it's okay, if it's 1, if it's something else, it will get that string at this point and try to convert it into whatever you have defined as a whatever you expect it to be as a type, and it will fail if it's not succeeding in converting it. Xcode is complaining that we don't have a return type. It cannot conclude the return type. So once we refresh, it will say the parameter was not convertible to an int, which is fine because at this place where we defined we're expecting an integer, we've said okay, and now we're taking that value at this place and trying to convert it into an integer, and it will fail. It will fail. When we hit 1, it will say delete because it succeeded in converting it into an integer and could continue to then return delete. So that's fine. That's cool, because now we are sure that we only deal with actual IDs or actual numbers, and with those numbers, for example, with the ID, right, integer, we can go now into our idea table to fetch an ID, or actually to look or search for an idea that matches with its ID with that ID that we provided in the URL, right? We could do that. However, Vapor provides us with the feature to do that for us already by just replacing int.parameter with idea.parameter and then getting the idea instead of the ID. And so this might sound a little bit counterintuitive, because before it made sense to like have a value and now we have kind of an object, or what is that, a class in the URL? No, it's just a convention so that Vapor still expects at this point of the URL an ID of type integer, right? So it still has to be an integer, and then it will take that and do all of it that I just explained. It will look up the idea table, obviously, because we've used idea as a parameter, and it will look up the idea table for the ID that matches the ID that is provided in the URL at this point. And once you call next, it will give you that idea if given, right? If it could find an ID that matches that number that you provided in the URL. In order to use idea, or in order to use a class, or actually a class that is also a database table, right, as a parameter, you will have to do one thing, and that is just extending the idea and conforming it, to parameter. That's it. Now we are able to use it as a parameter, and we can now say we have a future of idea, which is the fetched idea out of the database. All we want to do now is delete it, right? So let's return the result of idea.delete query, which we want to be executed on the back of the request. And once the delete query is finished, we want to map the result, and we get the idea instance in here, which we don't use anymore and which is even deleted in the database. So it is just in the scope of this closure existent still, but will be gone once this execution is finished, right? So we don't really use that instance. We could even say underscore to omit getting it passed into our closure. Anyway, all we want to do is, after we have finished deleting the idea from the database, we want to map the result into a redirect. So we want to redirect to our index, so that when we hit that URL, it will delete the idea with that ID and then redirect us to our list. So it will execute that index closure again, which will fetch all ideas from the database, which will not include our idea, which we have deleted at this point, right? And will show us a list of all ideas, which will again not include the idea we've just deleted. So let's delete the last line here. We don't need anymore. Oh yeah, and we will have to fix the return type to future of response, because that's what we are returning. And once we run the project, we can now go to our index again and create new ideas. Let's create a few, and we can delete them. And even if we refresh, they're vanished and coming never back. So one more thing we can do is make this delete button a little bit more beautiful. It's quite wide, right? So we can make it a little bit smaller by saying, well, a width of 100 should be fine. And also we want to add some Bootstrap classes, for example, button, and then button danger, dash danger, and we have a red delete button. This one is a little bit large, so we can even use button small. It's smaller, and we can go even one step further and go to fontawesome.com, scroll down to start for using free, scroll down again and copy that whole line of code into your base.leaf inside our head tag, as we did with Bootstrap. And now we are able to use icons, and we can use the I tag to add some classes from Font Awesome to have an icon, for example, the trash icon. And I want the alternative trash icon because I like this one better. You can look all the classes up on fontawesome.com. We can close that one, refresh, and we have a trash button, which when we click it, will delete our idea out of our table and database. So that's the episode. This is how you delete ideas. This is how you make it even convenient for you to fetch a certain model out of your database by letting Vapor doing the hard work. If you have learned at least one thing, you can help me out by hitting like, hit subscribe to not miss out on future episodes. Also leave a comment if you have any feedback of any kind. Check out the description box for my Patreon to support me doing YouTube full time and also to check out the merch. Other than that, I hope I see you in the next one. Bye.